brillar en armonía con el cielo.
methodologists for low, that was equally riveting, and they gave us hope that we could merge problem solving for the betterment of humankind. Can you hear me in the back? I don't think so. No? So, is it too far away? You can't hear it. No, I'm sorry. So you really have to be close. Anyway, I won't repeat that, but the technical experts gave us hope that we could merge technology to problem solve for the betterment of humankind by doing things like turning waste to energy. Now we have the high risk group. We should call them the hazard group. These are the people that are actually doing the work on the ground. These are what we call the implementing partners. Why are they difficult? Because they're highly energetic, but they're very difficult to manage, particularly time management. So we want to make sure that everybody limits their talks to about 8 minutes, just to give everybody
20 años de experiencia de trabajo en el campo. Estamos enfocados al uso de la energía renovable, la conservación del medio ambiente, el desarrollo de los bienes y servicios naturales a través de la construcción de condiciones favorables para la gobernabilidad y la gobernanza, mediante procesos participativos y articulados de los actores de la sociedad, tanto públicos como privados. Como trabajamos en la base, también identificamos necesidades y faltantes en las políticas nacionales y hacemos esfuerzos de facilitación de abajo hacia arriba para llevar esas inquietudes al gobierno. En el 96 se aprobó la Ley General de Electricidad en Guatemala, donde se excluyó la energía renovable. Trabajamos con OEA varias propuestas, logrando en el 2003 la aprobación de la Ley de Incentivos para la Generación de Energía Renovable. Más adelante también trabajamos en la inclusión de la generación distribuida en el reglamento de la Ley General de Electricidad, ya que si bien la generación era libre, no se podía entrar a la red de distribución si no se pagaba el valor agregado de distribución, cerrando todas las posibilidades a pequeñas centrales. También actualmente estamos trabajando en pequeñas centrales hidroeléctricas, en sistemas fotovoltaicos, trabajando mucha incidencia en la biomasa, principalmente en biocombustibles, que hice una pregunta hoy en la mañana por eso. El etanol, si se mezcla con la gasolina, como el biodiesel, si se mezcla con el diésel.
Muy buenas tardes, yo voy a tener el gusto de compartir con ustedes el trabajo que Fundación Solar está realizando en el marco del proyecto Impulsando el Desarrollo en 11 comunidades por medio de la apropiación de buenas prácticas ambientales y la producción de energía limpia con enfoque de usos productivos y resiliencia a los desastres naturales. Bueno, después de que doña Martita nos platicó un poco sobre quiénes somos, yo paso directamente a la información general del proyecto. El objetivo general se enfoca en la apropiación de buenas prácticas ambientales y la producción de energía limpia con enfoque de usos productivos y resiliencia a los desastres naturales. La duración del proyecto es de 8 meses, empezamos en el mes de febrero, a la fecha llevamos 4 meses de ejecución y nuestro grupo meta son 120 familias que habitan en las microcuencas de Xeul y Xibalam, en el departamento de Baja Verapaz, municipio de Cubulco. Aproximadamente por una ruta asfaltada estamos a 250 kilómetros y por ruta de terracería a 150. Económicas y agroforestales, ¿verdad?, que realizan las familias, ¿verdad?, de esa área. Y como consecuencia, también están bajo la línea de la pobreza, la mayoría. El proyecto pues contempla en general 3 líneas de acción. La primera, pues reducir las emisiones de carbono derivadas del uso de la leña, vacas y de animales de corral que tienen las personas en su casa. También se contempla la reducción de CO2 en un número de 27.23 toneladas y 12 estufas de biogás instaladas Y también a través de los biodigestores pues vamos a tener 12 lámparas de iluminación, ¿verdad? Operadas con el gas. Otro producto de los biodigestores también es un abono, ¿verdad? El bioabono, que va a contribuir a los cultivos de las personas. Cuatro viveros colectivos implementados, ¿verdad? 60.000 plantas en los viveros, principalmente de café y de paterna, que es el árbol que le da sombra al café, y 120 metros cúbicos de lombricomposteras. Cada familia pues va a hacer un cajón, ¿verdad? Para ahí cultivar las lombrices, y ahí se va a producir abono orgánico, ¿verdad? Para sus cultivos y para el café, y también abono foliar, ¿verdad? Del que se produce a partir del escurrimiento, ¿verdad? De las aboneras. La conservación de suelos, como yo les comenté, también tenemos una meta de 21.2 hectáreas a través de buenas prácticas como lo son terrazas y otras medidas de protección, ¿verdad? Para las pendientes, barreras, ¿verdad? También. Y el cultivo de implementación de cultivos permanentes, principalmente el café, que es una zona en donde es fácil y muchas familias tienen plantaciones de café. También se les está apoyando en el uso de buenas prácticas productivas y agronómicas para granos básicos y otros cultivos, y un plus, digamos, un valor agregado del proyecto pues es la implementación de huertos proteicos colectivos, ¿verdad? Con plantas que puedan contribuir a la seguridad alimentaria. Los desafíos que hemos tenido en la implementación son varios, ¿verdad? Primero, que la comunidad se concentra principalmente en esta época en actividades agrícolas, más ahorita que empieza el invierno. También las oportunidades para replicar o ampliar el proyecto, pues hay mucho interés en las familias de las microcuencas, en especial por las mujeres, ¿verdad? Porque ya es mejor, pues ellas ven el beneficio que representa utilizar estufas de gas en contra de utilizar fogones abiertos, ¿verdad? La metodología también utilizamos los principios de educación popular, aprender haciendo, liderazgo situacional, en donde ellos aprenden de los técnicos que están allá trabajando. Existe demanda también por el uso del gas, como yo les comenté, por parte de muchas familias, alta participación en la mujer, tanto con los biodigestores y con los otros componentes, y los biodigestores pues pueden ser construidos por materiales locales, o sea, troncos y otros productos que son de bajo costo que se pueden conseguir en cualquier comunidad. Bueno, esto es lo que yo les puedo comentar. Además, algo muy importante es que Fundación Solar ha tenido la visión y ha trabajado anteriormente en otras microcuencas que tienen el interés y la necesidad y ya están sensibilizadas en el aspecto ambiental y en la utilización de tecnología de energía renovable. Muchas gracias.
Asad Mohammed from the St. Augustine campus of the University of the West Indies and the Caribbean Network for Urban Land Management. He is going to present on comparatively analyzed built and cultural heritage of 5 Caribbean cities: Willemstad, Paramaribo, Bridgetown, St. George's, and East Port of Spain, 3 of which are UNESCO World Heritage Sites, and 1 of which
this is the current status of the project. We've basically mobilized the team, and we've done desktops reviews, we've done site visits to St. George's, Paramaribo, Bridgetown, and East Port of Spain, and we've done situational analysis. And we are now finalizing some technical papers. We have posts on the website which you all can visit, And we had a formal presentation at the Caribbean Urban Forum in March. The project is now about 50% through. This is basically a summary of the findings so far on Port of Spain. I'm not doing all four, it's too much information. I'm focusing on Port of Spain, which is not listed, and Paramaribo, which is. So what we find there in Port of Spain is that there's very little appreciation of the original city center and the historic core of East Port of Spain. And there's also very little awareness on the basic principles of UNESCO or the Valletta principles. This is from interviews with both state officials, people in the community, urban managers, and so on. In Paramaribo, in an area which is listed, there's very low priority to support the development and management of the historic area by planning initiatives, and they're very weak on measures to implement sustainability within the city, many cities in Latin America and the Caribbean, but it's worthwhile noting some of the general issues that must be addressed for sustainable urban management in Caribbean cities. Climate change, high vulnerability to natural hazards, the economic fragility of the economies, weak legal and institutional capacity, limited technical capacity to undertake assessments and planning, poor data collection, management, and information sharing, high issues of problems of urban security, large informal economy, and large informal housing and land sectors. I know it sounds similar to all the countries we're talking about. Okay, this is UN Habitat in 2012 in the state of Latin American Caribbean cities found generally that there was 80% plus urbanization in the region, making it the most urbanized region in the world, as common knowledge. The problem is the report lumped the Caribbean in with that, and the data is not very good. But generally, the data that we do have supports the idea that the Caribbean lags a bit, but is over 70% urbanized. However, the last point here is that the urbanization is not in large and concentrated cities. The settlements are small, and they're largely sprawled and ill-defined. So while we have high densities of population that we are classified as urban, they tend to be sprawled inefficiently over the islands with their limited landmass. Generally, our findings are that there are no concerted urban policies in the region as a whole. So that you have planning policy and you have building regulations in some countries, but the policies are more focused on sectoral policies that happen to be in to move this agenda along by dialogue with the 15 CARICOM countries to try and come up with what is their understanding of the urban agenda for the region. Now, the multilaterals, including CARICOM, suggest that climate change is the critical urban issue. All right? Look where climate change is here. In dialogue with CARICOM countries, they still think of urban issues around what we call the bread and butter issues of politicians and governments. So look what is at the top: local economic development and poverty alleviation. Look where climate change is at the bottom. Sustainable planning is right at the bottom. So these are not listed, we just listed in two categories, high and low. And this is the first cut of the distribution of the nature of the urban agenda in the region when we put together the various policy thinking of the governments. Now, in the last version of it, which I'm not showing you a slide here, we basically took sustainable planning and climate change out as a specific topic and put it in this column here as a cross-cutting issue. Because if you read the individual items across here in the detailing of the issue, you would see that sustainable planning and climate change occurs in many of the, as a subcategory or an explanation of many of the urban issues. All right, I want to relate the issue of climate change now and sustainable urban management in the Caribbean. The Caribbean, especially Trinidad and Tobago, has very high per capita generation of greenhouse gases. But on an absolute basis, they're relatively small. And because the Caribbean islands have a concentration of coastal settlements, as a bundle of, including some of the Caribbean countries, you see that while some countries, this is Oman, which is the, I think other than Trinidad, the highest per capita generator of greenhouse gases in the world. Well, that's because of the greenhouse, that is because of the energy-based industries and the small populations. But even the rest of the Caribbean, you see that there is a very slight, well, CARICOM is going to do it, but we're going to provide technical support for them. So I'm not going to read this decision here, but I want to get back to
He's from the Centro Regional del Convenio de Basile para Centroamérica y México, and he's going to talk about formulating the waste electronic equipment known as the WE strategy for Central America through a participatory approach. Miguel.
Muchas gracias, muy buenas tardes. Tal vez Luisa, si me puedes ayudar para… Vamos a aprovechar que todos estamos un poquito oscuritas para despertarnos con un elemento importante de nuestra actividad en residuos electrónicos, que es la sensibilización. Así que vamos a poner un video.
Il n'est jamais trop tard pour changer le monde. No es tarde para cambiar. En armonía con el cielo, cada elemento en su lugar. Para actuar es buen momento. Y es que no es tarde para cambiar. En armonía con el cielo, cada elemento en su lugar. Para ti, para mí, sin miedo. Tú y yo somos responsables del mundo. Siempre cuida lo que es tuyo. No dejemos para mañana lo que hoy podemos hacer. Il faut qu'on soigne la planète. Changer nos mauvaises habitudes, prendre parti pour la protection de la nature. Todo lo que se pueda reutilizar, todo lo que el mundo. Y es que no es tarde para cambiar. En armonía con su lugar. Para es buen momento. Y es que no es tarde para cambiar. En armonía con el cielo. Para ti, para mí, sin miedo.
Let's protect our planet. Bueno. Este video está en la página web del Convenio de Basilea. Está disponible para todo el mundo en la sección multimedia y nos demuestra cómo debemos hacer uso de todos los instrumentos para lograr esa motivación, ese entusiasmo para cambiar paradigmas. Y es que en nuestro centro estamos comprometidos en transformar los residuos de aparatos eléctricos y electrónicos en una oportunidad. El tema es complejo, cada vez más hay más equipos electrónicos, cada vez los cambiamos más rápido y nos olvidamos de qué ocurre después de que los utilizamos. También ahí están refrigeradoras, microondas, baterías de carro, importante, yo del año pasado, donde tuvimos la reunión más grande en las Américas de expertos en residuos electrónicos de todo el mundo. Por eso es que es factible tomar la oportunidad, pero también hay desafíos, recursos técnicos. Pues ya tenía un sabor de alianzas público-privadas, un enfoque de apoyar no solo el Convenio de Basilea, sino que otros, también de impulsar capacitación, tecnología y acceso a información y sensibilización no solo para mejorar el ambiente y la salud, sino que para promover la competitividad de nuestros países. Ahora, este proyecto lo lanzamos con impulsar mejores acciones y donde nos dimos cuenta de que no estamos solos, que el desafío es muy complejo, pero no estamos solos. Es más, se generó una agenda de 20 puntos que ya le da una orientación a la estrategia regional para Centroamérica de residuos electrónicos y que puede ser valiosa también para el Caribe. De hecho, participó una representante del Centro del Convenio de Basile para el Caribe y un servidor va a ir al taller en Trinidad y Tobago en julio, donde ellos van a discutir. Pero en el taller nos dimos cuenta de que en la misma región hay avances significativos. Y aquí vemos la oportunidad de la política que existe de residuos electrónicos en Costa Rica y los avances que comentaba en la gestión de baterías usadas, que se ha trasladado en una inversión de más de 35 millones de dólares en tecnología de punta, segura y amigable con el ambiente en Guatemala. Y por aquí está don Luis Marroquín, gerente de la planta de acumuladores, procesos y seguros. Aquí también los directores de los centros de Basilea del Caribe y de Centroamérica trabajamos de la mano. Y en medio está el señor Brian Wilson, que es el experto mundial en plomo, que le ha dedicado mucho tiempo a estos avances. Adicionalmente, y como hay que impulsar campañas concretas, el Centro, porque vamos a romper un paradigma de que el proceso de Basilea es burocrático y no puede agilizarse haciendo un proyecto piloto entre Guatemala y El Salvador. De igual forma, colaboramos por ahí conectando a una empresa privada para que 600 monitores no fueran desperdiciados y ayudaran a escuelas públicas. También hemos presentado una candidatura para ser sede en octubre del 2014 de la reunión anual del Foro Mundial de Recursos, que este año tiene como tema en Davos Ciudades Sostenibles. Estamos usando todo lo que tenemos a nuestra mano para impulsar. La conferencia de las partes de Basilea abrió un programa interseccional que incluye residuos electrónicos, baterías, y vamos a seguir esto y estamos trayendo a Costa Rica al coordinador de desechos de Japón, también va a llegar a El Salvador. Es más, en la triple COP, Conferencia de Basilea, Estocolmo y Rotterdam, lanzamos una iniciativa mundial para el uso de baterías y con el apoyo de este centro que está en Osaka como secretaría. Eso nos va a ayudar, al igual que el hecho de que entre el grupo técnico asesor de químicos del Jefe, donde participo, logramos meter el tema de baterías para el nuevo programa Jefe 6, 2014-2. Y ya vamos terminando la presentación. En comunicaciones importantes estamos usando las redes sociales en todas las ventanas posibles. Y muchísimas gracias, ahí tienen mis datos de contacto para cualquier duda, cualquier sugerencia, cualquier colaboración, y gustosamente también mi dirección de Skype. Muchísimas gracias.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Miguel. Our final talk today is by Jim Aronson, who's going to present on the Grenada project, obviously from Grenada. And that is a complex project to recycle certain waste streams, including fish, brewers' spent grain, market waste, restaurant and hotel food waste, and crop waste to manufacture a protein
Caribbean of its kind in the world. This is our plant. It's located in the landfill on the island of Grenada. In the background, you can see the stacks from the asphalt plant and other undesirable are located there. Oh, wrong button. Okay. This kind of combustion, the combustion motor oil, is approved by the Environmental Protection Agency of the United States. It is also approved for use in all of these countries. What these countries have in common is they all have winter. And so the companies that make the combustion equipment do not bother marketing it in places like the tropics where the idea of heat is ridiculous. So conversely, nobody in the Caribbean has ever even thought of using this process because nobody's ever pitched it to them. This is Grenada's worst pollution problem. There's no facilities for disposal of used oil on the island of Grenada. And I imagine if you live in a small country, you may have the same situation. What I didn't understand about my little due diligence trip, from my personal knowledge, was it came in extremely handy in trying to explain it to the government officials in Grenada who are technically perhaps not up to speed. This piece of equipment is called a cooker. And this is where we put all the waste products. And it's got a big times as a greenhouse gas than CO2. It's called its global warming potential. Well, if you translate that back to CO2, our plant, our little plant, by getting rid of a pile like that every day and a pile of fish guts like that every day, will remove 1,000 tons of CO2 from the atmosphere in mitigation for Grenada's carbon footprint. This is our plant before that we can enrich what we're making. Then it goes up into this conveyor and into this bagging machine, which isn't quite assembled, but I figured you'd want to see the pictures anyways. This tank is the tank that we used when we proved the concept. It's a plastic tank. And what happens is about half of the oil goes back into the tank. And it's very hot. So the whole time we were doing the test, we'd go over and keep touching it to make sure it wasn't going to melt on us, because we would have really had to scramble out of there. This is after OAS. I don't know how well you can see this because it's so low on the screen, but we had just unloaded this tank, which is our new tank, which is going to go in this upper container, from this 40-foot container, seagoing container. We built the equipment in Florida, USA. This is how, before OAS, we used to load the cooker. The cooker's 5,000 liters, the bucket's 15. It took us hours, but we finally got it loaded and were able to run our test using used oil as a fuel. And he will be packaging the final product. B and Zebi, this is the dark sign, by the way, the highest of all high, are my mechanics. And Ants, don't ask me where the name came from, Ants is going to be going around with the truck and picking up the fish guts and the brewery waste. These people are my recipients, my beneficiaries, and they are poultry farmers, and they have been whipsawed by the forces of globalization. They used to make all the chicken for Grenada in Grenada. Now they only have about 5 to 10% of the market. We will be selling the feed to them at our cost. They will be able to afford to be more competitive because the feed is 85% of the chicken, and the chicken is the most important meat in Grenada, and they will recoup, hopefully, a good portion of that 95% of the market that they gave up. Economic development. Just a few last slides. This is a device we brought down for the chicken farmers. It's called a mobile processing unit. And I put this up here for my peers because I think it's a great idea. We found it in America. We go through America looking for ideas for small farmers, and we bring
e-waste recycling, architecture, town planning, urban policy, cross-cutting issues, bringing together the whole aspect of what is sustainable cities and the urban agenda. I particularly like cradle-to-cradle concepts like this, what we just saw. The reduce, reuse, recycle, retrofit concept is very apparent, all leading towards what we hope to achieve, a low-carbon economy. So I'd like to open it up to questions. I actually won't ask one, but let's just do 3 or 4 questions. And could we get all 5 panelists up here, please? And we'll just take as many questions as there are, and then we'll get some responses.
All right, thank you. Name is Leighton Nareen from St. Kitts and Nevis. First want to applaud my colleague Jim for a fascinating presentation and fantastic idea. But that leads me to my actual question. More Godzilla, you ask me. I will ask my friend Assad to give some thoughts on that. Thank you.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Marlon Toruño de Nicaragua, de la Universidad La Salle. Mi pregunta va para Ecosolar, creo que es los que pusieron lo de los biodigestores. Allá en Nicaragua, nosotros casualmente pues estamos usando esa tecnología para generar energía. En la universidad estamos generando con biogás, adaptamos a generadores y estamos pues generando suministrando parte de la energía que consumimos. Pero eso no es mi pregunta. La pregunta va con respecto al área rural, la tecnología que ustedes están promocionando. Allá en Nicaragua, por mucho tiempo, han habido proyectos donde han promocionado este tipo de biodigestores en el campo. Muchos han fracasado. Nosotros hicimos un estudio en el campo porque también ese es parte del trabajo nuestro, ¿no? Promocionar este tipo de tecnología. Y muchos proyectos fracasaron por los quemadores cuando encienden en las estufas y el sulfuro de hidrógeno, ¿no? El olor, el mal olor que desprende la combustión de ese tipo de gas.
Pero con las aves tuvimos un problema de que produce canibalismo y se comen entre ellas mismas. Entonces, no sé si han tomado en cuenta eso, si la harina de pescado la van a combinar con otro suplemento alimenticio para evitar eso, o ya ustedes probaron esa alimentación en la ave.
Muchas gracias, muy buena tarde. Mi nombre es Luis Marroquín, soy el gerente de la planta de reciclaje de baterías ácido plomo usadas en Guatemala. Y quería felicitar a la señora de Granada por el proyecto de la quema de combustible. Nosotros también en nuestros hornos quemamos aceite lubricante usado y estamos quemando aproximadamente 25,000 galones mensuales. Y igual que ellos, nosotros no tenemos emanaciones a la atmósfera. Nuestra planta está rodeada por más o menos 1.800 familias. Estamos acá en el kilómetro 10.8 de la carretera del Atlántico, o sea, estamos dentro del área urbana. Creo que con proyectos como estos, las cuestiones sí se pueden hacer de una manera ambientalmente responsable. Por otro lado, también agradecemos al Centro Regional del Convenio de Basilea y al licenciado Miguel Arau.
Change to your electorate, but you could sell some of the other aspects of the economic costs of doing things, of transportation and so on, to the electorate. So that's why the mitigation strategies are very, actually much stronger arguments in my mind, and the low carbon, the benefits of a low carbon economy, which is why we're trying to find a sort of balanced approach to demonstrate the economic benefits of it. But I'll end by saying, Leighton, is that you should know that when you look at the way in which urbanization is taking place in islands that have very limited land resources, they're really creating really horrendous problems to the future right now as we talk, in terms of the way in which we're doing suburbanization and the inefficiency of our urban structures.
Okay, I think we're going to move right to the next speaker. Emma, are you ready? Okay, and then we'll have coffee. So we're going to have one 10 to 15 minute speaker, and then we're going to have coffee, and we're pretty much on track. So that was an excellent, excellent panel. Thank you so much. Very, very interesting.
Sustainability efforts and climate change action. As I'm sure everyone is aware, the U.S. does not have a national climate policy or program, so a lot of the efforts that go on to mitigate greenhouse gases occur at the local level. That's where a lot of initiative has been taken and where there's a lot of motivation. And as you can see from the slide here, there's a lot of different benefits to engaging in sustainability and climate work. And as was mentioned by the last panel, climate change as a motivator is not necessarily the most politically salient. Things like air quality benefits, health benefits, economic benefits, those things tend to drive action. And those are very much benefits that you can see in projects associated with greenhouse gas reductions. The diagram here just gives a sense of the sectors that really play a major role at the local level in energy use and greenhouse gas production. And local governments are really well positioned for this type of work in the US. They have jurisdiction over these sectors. They're very well connected to their citizenry and their local priorities, and have those relationships that can really proof of the potential results they may get. And so, as I mentioned, building resiliency to climate change and adaptation is an emerging area of interest for us. We have traditionally focused on mitigation, but as the need is certainly apparent, we are working on building support for adaptation as well. And I just want to point out that all of our resources are available for free online, and our web address and information is included in this presentation. Currently, our resources are only in English, but they're certainly available to anyone who wants to use them. They may be relevant to you in your community. And so just as a quick overview of what we specifically offer for local governments, we have a lot of guidance and tools, and in particular, we have a series of documents that provides really in-depth information about how to design and implement programs ranging from energy efficiency topics, renewable energy, transportation, community planning, waste management. And I have provided a lot of documents and resources on the back table in the back right-hand corner of the room that provides more information about these resources and where to access them. So I certainly encourage folks to pick that up. But also, I want to point out that we do a lot of peer exchange opportunities. We use webcasting through the internet to provide training and case studies and get local governments to talk to other local governments about what they're doing, long-term results across the country. And also, we're focusing on the multiple benefits that I mentioned of this work: economic, social, health benefits, things like that. And so we have a very similar scope to the ECPA grants. We're doing a lot of energy efficiency work, renewable energy, land use, waste management, transportation type projects. And just to give you a sense of who these communities are, we intentionally selected projects that would be representative of a diverse suite of communities, so that we would have different communities of different size and different types of location: rural, urban, suburban, and also different types of government structures. In the United States, there's a tremendous diversity in local governments, as I'm sure there is in other countries. You know, what is available? How do they go about riding the bus? What is that system like in their community? And have seen great results in doing that. And just a couple of others, I'll point out that in North Carolina, we have a program in Durham that's doing energy efficiency work on homes in communities where the residents don't qualify for low-income government assistance. They're just above that margin. And what they did was create a neighbor-to-neighbor program where they trained leaders in the community to help educate their neighbors and have seen great results there. So that's just a few examples. There's a web problem where doing the inspection of the home for the retrofit, they found out that their gas appliances weren't appropriately ventilated, and they were having gas just pour into their home. So they were being slowly poisoned. So the program, the retrofit program, had the added benefit of actually a health benefit and possibly saving that family. So there's great stories to share. Those are the most compelling, and they also help to demonstrate the capacity built within these communities. And then as we get that information, we want to disseminate it through networks. So like coming to events like this and being able to talk to all on an annual basis. You'll see here saved annually. So that's essentially a one-year return on investment if you think about the fact that we invested $20 million in this program. So, and we really see 50 communities is just the beginning. We want to make sure that this information gets to other folks who can use it, because we can provide a platform for other communities to do similar work to hopefully reduce those barriers to entry into some of these programs. So we have seen some examples of replication. These are detailed here, and I will just sort of briefly highlight what we've thought about in terms of replication, thinking about what does that mean, what does it look like. One model would be for other communities to take a look at 50 communities. That's a relatively small group. We work on having face-to-face and virtual online exchanges. It was required as part of their grants that they had to attend an annual training meeting, and that is where we get the results. That's where we have people talking to each other, building relationships, and coming up with strategies to address their problems. Also, documentation of results and successes, as I mentioned, storytelling and showcasing, capacity building. We really picked programs that we thought were going to build the capacity of those local governments and communities to do similar work going forward. Not just, we're going to purchase electric vehicles, but no, we're going to design a program. We're going to look at our downtown planning and see how can we redesign our main downtown to be more sustainable, transportation friendly, green infrastructure for water quality, things like that. And then some of the keys to long-term success. So for each of these programs, we are aiming that they should be able to continue climate action work. Appendix here with information on other resources, a link to our website, the strategy guides I mentioned, other tools for calculating your emissions, Portfolio Manager and Energy Star, so how to make your buildings more efficient, and then the Building Blocks program, which I know worked with OAS to create a walkability audit tool. This is just a snapshot of what we have. I'm more than happy to stick around after the talk today to answer questions and talk in detail with folks that are interested, but I can see my time is up, so thank you very much.
Let's see, we have a project that's larger than ours, that's been going longer than ours, that has all sorts of lessons learned and best practices, has some of the same concept like scaling up and sustainability. Certainly, I'm going to be going straight to this web page and sending it to all of our partners here, all of our implementing agencies, so that you guys can see what they have done, and obviously this would help you write your final reports a lot. I think there's a lot of real similarities and synergies with this project and the building block project of US EPA.